Well, let's send it over to Canberra now because joining us live is the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers. Treasurer, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Just a short time ago, we heard from a resident. Her name's Jess Carter. Her home is flooded in Shepparton. This is part of what she had to tell us about her financial situation.
No, it's not. I couldn't tell you a figure of what this is going to cost. Once the water goes, we have to check the foundations of the house and see structurally how it is, not just inside the house, but how the structure of the house is holding up.
Yeah, that's just one example, Treasurer. She's not insured, neither are her flooded neighbours. They can't afford it, simply. So can they expect any more financial help?
Well, good morning, Pete. Unfortunately, Jess's story in Shepparton will be a pretty common story in all of these flood-affected areas. And this is primarily, of course, a human tragedy. We're very concerned about the people in these communities, but there will be economic consequences as well. My message to Jess and to all of these people in affected communities is Australians are there for each other when times are tough, and the government will be there for you as well. We will do what we responsibly can to provide some emergency relief. My colleague Murray Watt has already had a bit to say about that. We'll try and get those payments flowing as quickly as possible. And obviously there'll be a substantial bill when it comes to the rebuilds as well.
OK, so just back on one-off payments that, while appreciated, they are a snip. Will more be coming at all?
I will do what we can, Pete. I mean, I think my colleagues, Murray Watt, the Prime Minister, myself and others are obviously completely focused on what's happening in these flood-affected communities right around Australia at the moment. We're focused on what we can do to keep people safe in the first instance, but we do understand that this brings a big economic hit, whether it's to household budgets or whether it's to the broader community and the broader economy as well. And we'll do what we responsibly can to support people through what is an incredibly difficult time. Sure.
So what might you be considering? And it's not just those individuals or those families that have been caught up with flooded homes. There's farmlands as well. So what is on your mind in terms of extra considerations this minute?
Well, the first priority is to get those emergency relief payments flowing. Beyond that, obviously we'll have a discussion in the government and with state governments and with others about the best way to deliver any additional support. When things like this happen, and unfortunately this has become too regular an occurrence in Australia, natural disasters have become a feature of what we're dealing with and the hand that we are dealt. And so inevitably there'll be a conversation about how we support the rebuild of infrastructure, how we support people through difficult times. That conversation is ongoing, and the cost of that, the consequences of that for the economy and the budget will be known in due course.
Have you got a ballpark figure on what the cost of this will be?
Oh, not yet, Pete. I've already had a long conversation with the Treasury yesterday, seeking some advice, first of all on the economic impact, what it means for inflation, what it means for growth in our economy, and how that flows through to the budget, in addition to the likely cost of these support payments and the infrastructure rebuild and other forms of support. It's premature to have a firm sense of the economic costs and consequences of these natural disasters, but we're working on it. We're working on it more or less around the clock to make sure that not just that we understand the consequences, but that we're doing what we responsibly can.
Yeah, and you mentioned there extra inflationary pressures, no doubt. Where do you expect inflation to max out at now?
Well, again, that remains to be seen, but that's some of the work that the Treasury is doing, is trying to understand what this means for our peak inflation, which we had expected to be around the end of the year, and what it means for the broader costs of living. But I think Australians, unfortunately, I think they understand, because we've been through this before, that Australians will see in the supermarket aisles that when some of the best farmland best farmland in the world goes underwater, that has obvious consequences for crops and for livestock. That is a human tragedy for the farmers and producers and growers involved, but it has consequences for cost of living around Australia too.
Right, so will inflation now go above 7.75%?
I will do the work to update that figure if it needs updating in the budget. The budget's only a week away now, and so we are in lots of ways scrambling to make sure that we can include our most up-to-date understandings of the economy in those budget forecasts that I release. That work has begun, but it hasn't finished. If we have time to factor that into the budget, we will. But in normal circumstances, the numbers in the budget would be finalised around now, and this situation is still evolving and still developing.
Right. So how close are you getting to finishing the budget?
Well, through the course of this week, different parts of it get finished. You finalise the revenue figures, the economic forecasts, the policy costings, and that happens in a kind of a staged way over the course of the week. But typically it goes to the printers by the end of the week, and so you've got a pretty hard deadline. And we're working to that deadline, of course, but we've been working around the clock for some time now to put the finishing touches on the budget that I'll hand down this time next week.
Just a quick one here, fishing exercise, any cost of living relief at all coming?
Oh, there'll be some responsible cost of living relief in the budget in areas that you're familiar with, that we've spoken about before, childcare, medicines, cheaper TAFE fees, paid parental leave, and a plan to get wages moving again. We've had a bit to say about housing. My colleague Julie Collins is in the papers today talking about housing. So that's some combination of those areas people can expect to see. That's how we provide responsible cost of living relief without pushing up inflation, and that's by ensuring that it's got an economic dividend, and that's what people can expect to see in a budget which will be solid, it will be sensible, and it will be suited to the times.
Well, Jim Chalmers, appreciate it. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon.